Hello and welcome to the show. Now, I am rather a fan of the Corvette ZR1, whether it be in Horizon 2 or any of the previous iterations of Forza that it has been in. I do quite like this vehicle. The primary reason is that you get an awful lot of performance for very little money. 90,000 credits, or around that in the previous Forzas, will get you 638 horsepower, 604 torque. We've got supercar figures, and we have supercar acceleration and straight line speed as well from the Corvette for very, very little money. The problem is the handling. It's not a terrible handling car, don't get me wrong, it's not completely and utterly undrivable, but it is, putting it kindly, a little bit of an animal. It doesn't handle as well as your likes of your Ferraris, your Lamborghinis and so on. It has a tendency to slide around very, very easily. It's a great fun car to drive, don't get me wrong. It's a real laugh to drive this car around a track. But for sort of actual competitive lap times, it's not perhaps the best choice of vehicle. The brakes aren't fantastic, and well, there's just not the grip in the car. Yes, we have the power, we have the acceleration, the speed and so on. It just doesn't really have the grip to seriously challenge the likes of the Ferraris and so on. Yep, great for messing around with, but not really a serious contender for sort of other supercars. Now, there is a new one, and it's still 90,000 credits, the Corvette Z06. I liked the C7 Stingray, very, very good car to drive that one, and now there is a more powerful version. It has all of the normal sort of race car paraphernalia on it. We have a front splittery bit, we have many, many vents on the bonnet, on the sides, even one on the top bit by the rear window quarter bits. We've got a silly wing, well, it's sort of a TVR wing going on at the back. It's not sort of the ACR Viper style wings that are just ridiculous size. This one is very much a Sagaris, Sagaris wing, and when you rev the engine, the camera likes to wibble and wobble around. Of course, when we come to the statistics and so on, it's again, we're talking supercar power. 650 horsepower in this thing, 650 torque. That's a lot. That is definitely firmly in sort of Ferrari, Lamborghini territory. And again, we look at straight line speed. 203 miles an hour is what this car will top out at. It'll do 0 to 60, 3.4 seconds. It'll be doing 100 in 7.5. Them figures certainly aren't out of place on a lot of your modern supercars. But that's nothing new for the fast Corvettes. They've always been very, very quick in a straight line, but it's when it comes to the corners that things really things are really quite important. As I said, the standard one of this is a very, very good car to drive. I was a little bit concerned that when we start putting so much power in this car that it was going to, much like the ZR1, was going to be a bit of a pain to get around a circuit. But you needn't worry, because this thing is really quite remarkable. I'm not entirely sure how they've done it, but the Z06 is really very, very good through the turns. Yes, at low speeds you will have some oversteer. When you go to put all of this power down onto the road from second gear, you will get the car sideways, you will spin the wheels up. But once you do get it, once you get it going, we're 170 miles an hour down here, coming up to a kink in this straight. It will take it at 160. It's a tiny lift is all that is needed. The car is perfectly composed through that section of the track. I don't have any of the scary oversteer. I mean, you do that in the ZR1 and you're probably going to end up in a wall, or pointing backwards, or perhaps both at the same time. It's not going to do it, whereas this car will stick to the road. And again, fast change of directions through here. It manages it without any problems whatsoever. That is very impressive. For a car that costs 90,000 credits, this thing handles remarkably well. The brakes are good as well. This isn't the lightest car, 3,500 pounds. We're talking about on Forza here with all the sports cars and supercars. Yeah, it's not particularly light, but it does get stopped very, very well. My only criticism of this entire car is the weight. At times it just feels a little bit sluggish. While it will grip the road through these high-speed turns, you just notice the weight a little bit through some of the quicker changes of direction. Again, I was trying to be braver. You can't really take much more than 160 miles an hour through there, but then you can get it all composed. You may get it a little sideways, Certainly if you took a wheel on the grass, it's probably not going to help matters. Yeah, it's a really very, very remarkable vehicle. It's not quite what I expected. I thought it might be quite good. I didn't expect it to be this good. I didn't expect it to have this much grip and be this easy to drive. Even if you do get this car sideways, it is unbelievably forgiving. It's very easy to get it all back under control. So I decided to set up a little test to see how the Corvette does compared to some supercar rivals. We were going to do 6 laps at the Citadel circuit, a track that I know very, very well. And I picked this track specifically because it is all about handling. You don't go above 130 miles an hour, really, with these sort of cars, because it is just corner after corner. There are hills, there are crests, there are bumps to challenge the cars, and the final few corners are some very, very tight hairpins. All about handling here. A place where traditionally Corvettes would struggle a little bit. While yes, at a long flowing track, the ZR1 may keep up with some of the supercars because it has just so much speed. Around here it would struggle because it just doesn't quite have the handling. This track had held no problems for the Z06, aside from the occasional slight sideways moment here and there. I mean, this turn 1 here is with sort of a medium speed corner, 100 miles an hour through there, and the car is perfectly planted on the road. Again, we're 100 miles an hour through here and the back end is refusing to step out. Okay, it may not be quite as planted as, let's say, an ACR Viper would be through the lower speed, or through the very low speed corner, sort of putting the power down out of them. But everywhere else, it's remarkable how well the car sticks to the road, and it's at a benchmark time of a 56.5. Now, the first of the challengers, well, it is the Lamborghini Huracan, a 270,000 credit supercar. You could buy 3 Corvette Z06s for the price of this car. However, it has less horsepower than the Corvette, only 602 in this one, and almost 250 less torque at 413. Admittedly, yes, it is lighter at 3,100 pounds, and it does have 4-wheel drive. At a track like this, 4-wheel drive is quite useful. I will be honest, having 4-wheel drive here is very, very nice, because certainly the latter half of the lap is all about power delivery. All about getting that power down onto the road, and of course with 4-wheel drive I can put the 600 horsepower in this Lamborghini onto the road immediately. There's no wheel spin, there's no sideways silliness out of these hairpins, and that means that I can make up quite a bit of time through this final section. I have to say, I did like driving this Lamborghini. Never always been a fan of high-powered 4-wheel drive vehicles. They tend to be a bit understeery, and certainly this one can be. Through turn 1 especially, you notice the understeer. This lap round, I didn't get a particularly good run into that first corner either. Yeah, you certainly notice the understeer a little bit, and you do notice this car does, again, much like the Corvette, does feel a little bit heavy through. So even though it's not particularly, it does feel it's just that high-powered 4-wheel drive problem that you get. But through the latter half of the lap, it makes up so much time with its traction through here that it does go quicker than the Corvette. It's at a 56.3, but that's only 0.2 of a second quicker. 3 times the price for 0.2 of a second in the Lamborghini. Yeah, that's quite impressive lap time from the Corvette. Up next, the McLaren MP4-12C was going to have a go. I've never been a massive fan of this car, I will be honest. I don't think I've never been a fan of the looks. The driving's okay. Yes, it's very, very quick, of course, but I don't know. It's just never really been my sort of car. Again, power, sort of figures-wise, it is very similar to the Lamborghini. 592 horsepower, 442 torque. I think it's the lightest car here, 3,031 pounds. So, you know, it's in the roughly the same wheelhouse as the other vehicles. The problem I have with this car is that it's just a tiny bit too oversteery, and unlike the Corvette, when the Corvette slides around, it's very manageable. When the McLaren starts doing it, it just gets a little bit unhappy. It's just not really a huge fan of sliding around. It gets a little bit twitchy. Just you can't quite bring it all back together as neatly as you can with as you could with the Corvette. And that's going to lead me to say something very peculiar, and something that I didn't expect to say well ever, but the Corvette is easier to drive than the McLaren. Certainly through this final turn, the McLaren did not like the bumps through there whatsoever. The Corvette had no problems. Lamborghini didn't have any problems either through the final bumps there. The McLaren, it just didn't quite like it. Overall, yeah, sure, you can get the McLaren quickly around the Citadel circuit, but it's not as comfortable racing it around there as the Corvette was, and that is a weird sentence to be saying. Up next, the Ferrari 458 Italia, the car that's been used as a benchmark for supercars for the last few years. Again, we're talking figure-wise, it's a little bit down on power, 562 horsepower, only 398 torque in this car, and weight-wise, 3,200 pounds. Not the most impressive statistically, but it is a damn nice car to drive. I can see why this car is used as a benchmark for supercars, because it is a very, very nice vehicle. Certainly the most lively of the cars. As I said, the Corvette felt a bit heavy, the Lamborghini felt a bit heavy, a bit understeery with that four-wheel drive, and I didn't particularly like the way the McLaren drives, but this is a very, very nice car to drive. It feels all very, very lively. I certainly wouldn't have guessed that, like, if I didn't know the figures, I wouldn't have guessed that the Ferrari was the heavier of the McLaren and the Lamborghini, because it is a lovely, lovely car to drive around a track such as this. Of course, you have got the same rear-wheel drive. You know, you're likely to spin up the wheels as you come out of the hairpin there, but the gearing in the Ferrari is also very good actually. The gearing certainly helps with some of that, but it doesn't go quicker than the Corvette. A 56.8. I may have had a small accident after crossing the line, got out a little bit too wide and snagged it on the wall, but it's not quicker. It's not quicker than the Corvette. The final vehicle, I thought I'd throw this in for just a little bit of a comparison, is the Nissan GT-R, the vehicle that's been, again, much like the Ferrari's been the benchmark for supercars. This has been the benchmark for the budget supercars, if you like. The GT-R is never really been my favourite of the vehicles, although I do concede it is incredibly fast for the amount of money you pay. 90,000 credits for this car. It is exactly the same as the Z06. You get 542 horsepower, 466 torque, again, all very similar figures to the cars that we have had before. However, it is the heaviest at almost 3,900 pounds. That is a lot of weight to be carrying around. It is four-wheel drive, yes, and as I said, again, like with the Lamborghini, that four-wheel drive around the Citadel circuit is very nice. Having that traction out of this final half a lap is very, very useful for a car like this one. The problem is it's just not got the speed. It's just not quite got the speed of the other vehicles. And while yes, I can try and make up as much time through this final section as possible, it's just not going to be enough. You can't make up enough time through this final section to catch up to the other vehicles. It's still a respectable lap time from the Nissan, don't get me wrong. A 57.7 is certainly not bad, but it's not as quick. Again, I can't quite get it turned into the first quarter as nicely. There's the whole high-powered four-wheel drive understeery thing going on with this car, but then of course we don't end up sliding sideways up the hill, which is always a useful thing. So for a full comparison of the lap times, the Hurricane does go quickest by only 0.2 of a second over the Z06. 3 times the price in that Lamborghini, and it's 0.2 of a second over that Corvette. The Corvette is ahead of the 458 Italia. It's half a second quicker than a McLaren MP4, and we're talking 1.2 seconds quicker than a Nissan GT-R. The same price, and the GT-R is incredibly fast for 90,000 credits, and the Corvette is 1.2 seconds quicker around a handling track, at a track that suits four-wheel drive cars. The Corvette is mighty, mighty fast. It is to do that sort of lap time, to compare with them cars on a handling track, is really very, very impressive. So, conclusion-wise, well, the Corvette is certainly the best value for money car here. 1.2 seconds quicker than the Nissan GT-R that is the same price, and this is on a track that's four-wheel drive, sort of favours the four-wheel drive cars. But is it the best car here? Well, okay, technically it got beaten by the Lamborghini around that particular track. Slightly different layouts, and I'm sure the Corvette could beat the Lamborghini. However, its real main rival and as strange as this is to say, is the 458 Italia. I think the Corvette is a nicer car to drive, it is an easier car to drive than the McLaren and perhaps even the Lamborghini. I think it's a bit nicer, certainly a bit easier to get around a track than the Lamborghini and the Nissan for that matter. Its main rival would be the 458 Italia, and I'm not sure. If I had to choose between these two cars, which one would I prefer? It is a very, very tough choice because I really like this Corvette, but the handling of the Ferrari is just that tiny little bit more fun. It's only a little bit, but it's just a little bit more fun driving the Ferrari. Certainly not worth twice the price more fun in the 458, but yeah, it's just a little bit more entertaining to drive. But the fact that I'm even talking about the Corvette Z06 in handling terms with a 458 Italia and a Lamborghini Huracan and a McLaren MP4 and so on and so forth is a serious testament to just how good this car is. I mean, you wouldn't do that with the ZR1. Yes, you can get a quick lap time out of the ZR1, but you have to be so very careful, and there's always a chance it's going to throw you in a wall. Whereas the Z06 is so easy to drive this car quickly. It's not what I expected. It's not at all what I expected. A really very impressive car here. I thought it was going to be good, but I didn't realise just how good it is. It's, yeah, it's a seriously fast car. And even though I may prefer the handling of the 458 Italia a little bit, the Corvette was still quicker than it around the course of the lap on a tight, twisty circuit. Yeah, definitely go check out this car if you haven't given it a drive yet. It's really very, very good. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.